Hi Jessica, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm good. So Jessica, we're here today to talk a little bit about your living arrangement, experiences and preferences, and we're going to speak on video today. Is that okay with you? Do you give your consent?
Yes, I give my consent. That's
okay, thank you. So tell me about your current living arrangement. What does that consist of?
I currently live in a HUD building, which is low income, provided by the state. I had to wait 6 years to get on it.
Oh, wow.
And then I have a separate provider, the regional center, who come to my house 16 hours a day, actually.
Is that supported living or is that independent living?
Supported.
Okay, supported living.
And
have you been in supported living for those 6 years?
I've been in supported living for 15 years, actually.
I see. Okay.
Just
with the same agency, or have you ever changed agencies?
I unfortunately have gone through 3 different agencies. I have a unique medical condition, so finding the match to it has proven to be a little difficult.
Is it working for you now?
Yeah, they got hit with a weird scenario very recently, and we're like, okay, we'll work with that.
I see. Okay. So you've been in supported living for 15 years. At this point, at this stage, you're comfortable with it, you like it, you appreciate it. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that's a fair statement.
Okay. And are you familiar with the board and care style living or group home style living?
Yes, I am. I started out that way.
Uh-huh. And tell me a little bit about your experience in group homes.
Well, I started out there not by choice. I had to under certain circumstances. And for me, it was more or less a prison. I lived in a 15-bed co-ed group home in the early 2000s off of Hubbard and Glen Oaks. It is still there today. I've been back a couple times. It's gotten a little bit more residential, but it's basically in the middle of nowhere.
So it sounds to me, is it fair to say that you didn't really appreciate your experience in a group home?
That is a fair thing to say.
What were some things you didn't like about it?
Well, the theory was that the staff could take the clients out for outings. However, when you only have 4 staff to a house and 15 clients, that is statistically not going to happen.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. So we were stuck inside the house all day, unless during the week we went to a day program.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Was there anything else, any other aspect that you didn't appreciate or you would have wanted to change while you were there?
Food choice. It had a pre-prepped menu that semi-made sense because of the number of individuals. But if you didn't want something, even if you offered to go into the kitchen and make it, their automatic response would be no. The thing that got me out of there is they actually made me cook for the whole entire house, including the staff, with assistance.
I see. Not good, huh?
No. I'm hoping that that's changed over the years. Again, this was back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's changed over the years, but I do know that particular group home is still standing.
So let me ask you a comparative question and let me give a little bit of backdrop first. In the 2016-2017 budget, some of the more high-powered advocates in Sacramento decided that it was time for a change and that we should place more emphasis on service categories like supported living and independent living and give less emphasis and less funding, if you will, to service categories like board and care and group home. And what happened was that supported living and independent living got a 5% program rate increase while board and care got a 0% increase. And so, given what you know personally, do you feel that that is the right way to go in the future, which will more or less kill off board and care and group home services, or do you feel like the services should be funded equally and that we should retain the board and care services for, quote, people who may need them?
I believe that the board and care services should be retained for those who need them, because being through that situation myself, I may have not belonged there, but there were definitely individuals where that was their home and the best care for them. So to take them away completely is wrong in my eyes.
Okay, fair enough. And what would you see as needed improvements in the board and care system, if any, in general? One or two. You mentioned some things you didn't like. Is there anything that you would recommend that needs to be changed in the board and care system in order for them to get the funding that they need and stay, quote, in business?
Well, if possible, in the larger facilities such as the one I was in, to get more staff instead of 4 on shift, have 6. Just to give that possibility of taking out even 1 or 2 clients. It doesn't have to be a large group, and it doesn't have to be for a long period of time.
Enriched staffing ratio. Do you think it would be better if all group homes were smaller, and so that there could be a little bit more individual attention? Maybe, for instance, would it be a good move if it's affordable for the system for everybody to have their own bedroom, so to speak?
Yes, I think so. I think it would honestly reduce conflict within the house itself. With a lot of people in one house, a lot of fights can happen amongst the clients. It's very hard to control sometimes, and personalities clash. So my theory is less, of course, is better if we can pull it off.
I see. Now, some of the more strongly involved ideological advocates, so to speak, might say to you, well, we believe everybody should be in supported living, and supported living should be availed, or everybody should have access to that service. That's the way that it was designed, and philosophically, we believe everybody has the right to be served in board and care regardless of their level of disability, and that includes people with complex health needs and complex behavioral needs, or just simply people that might be a little bit less capable. So how do you feel about that?
I feel that it's very hard to generalize such a complex part of society. As defined, developmental disabilities are actually unique. So to state something broad like everybody should be in supported living, or 50% should be here, 50% should be there, that's a hard statement to make. I believe that there should be an evaluation process available to the clients where they can get, to whatever extent they have, involved in where they go. That's what I did years ago, even with opposition. So I think that's what needs to happen. If the systems need to stay, there are reasons for it. Like I said, people find this to be their home and they're perfectly fine in some cases. But have an evaluation process. Don't just put people somewhere because it's convenient.
And should there be a funding threshold? And should you have different funding thresholds for supported living and board and care? Or should they be similar? So let me give you an example. Let's say a family advocates for their son or daughter who is very severely involved and has very complex needs, but they say, you know what, we want supported living for them, and we're going through the IPP process, and we don't care what it costs. It may cost $300,000 or $400,000 a year to have them in supported living, but we believe, and philosophically, we believe that's what that person should have. We believe that that's what our family members should have. Should there be a funding threshold for supported living, or should it be whatever the family wants, and it should be the family choice?
Well, I hate to say this, but there has to be some sort of threshold because there is a budget and it has to serve thousands of people. It's arguably, and self-determination is kind of trying to figure this part out, is can there be a compromise between the two? Can the two sides meet and say, we can supply this much, we supply this much? That's the idea of self-determination. It gives clients more involvement. So I think it's trying to happen, but it can't be unlimited funding on either side.
Okay.
I think if they want really, really specified services that are currently not available, there should be a negotiation point.
Okay. Fair enough. Jessica, do you have anything else to add to the interview today?
Just that I know the system's not perfect, it's extraordinarily flawed, but in all fairness, California is the only state that, regardless of developmental disability under the Lanham Act, gives people the opportunity to even live on their own without question.
All right. Thank you very much, Jessica, for participating in this project.